yourself. A lot of people love me to tell this story. When I got out of school, you know, my first major goal was to buy my mother a home, and my hero in broadcasting was Paul Harvey, and I wanted to become involved in broadcasting, and I loved the disc jockeys that were on the air, and I wanted to become a disc jockey. See, so I started working to develop my communication skills and expand my vocabulary. I started visualizing myself being a disc jockey. I saw myself on the air having a talk show and playing records and people listening to me. That was my vision. That was my dream. I held that in mind constantly, and I would practice all the time. Practice makes what? Absolutely not. Just dislodge that from your mind. Practice only makes improvement. Perfection doesn't exist. They need to take it out of the dictionary. It doesn't exist. Practice only makes improvement. You can always better your best. You have not done your best work yet. As long as you're here, you have a chance to transcend yourself. So don't believe in perfection. It doesn't exist. It only makes improvement. So I would practice every day. And finally, I went over to this radio station, asked a guy for a job named Mr. Butterwall, and I said, "How you doing, sir? I'd like to get a job." I was working on Miami Beach at the Fontainebleau Hotel at the time. Jackie Gleason and the June Taylor Dancers were famous. And my favorite program on television, most people would not remember, John Beresford Tipton. "Hi, my name is Michael Anthony. I have a check for $1 million. How many of you remember that program, all right? The Millionaire, that was my favorite program on television, you know. So this is my fantasy, you know, and every time we would drive from Miami Beach, I would fantasize, oh, that's the house. When I get my million, I'm going to buy my mother that home over there. So that was my fantasy. So I went up to Mr. Butterball, and he said, "Do you have any radio experience?" I said, "No, sir." "You have any background in journalism?" I said, "No, sir." I said, "But I can never get experience if you don't give me the opportunity. I've been practicing a lot, sir." He said, "I'm sorry, we don't have any job for you." I said, "Thank you, sir." He didn't know my reasons for being there. My reason, I wanted to use radio as a means to earn the money to buy my mother a home. I went back to the radio station again. I said, "How you doing, Mr. Butterball? My name is Les Brown. I know your name. Didn't I just see you here yesterday?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Y'all have any jobs here?" "Didn't I tell you yesterday we didn't have any jobs?" "Yes, sir, but I thought maybe somebody got fired or resigned. I didn't know, sir." I went the next day. "How you doing, Mr. Butterball?" He said, "Yes." And I just didn't take it personal. "How you doing? So y'all have any jobs here?" "Didn't I just tell you yesterday and the day before we didn't have any work?" I went the next day, showed up like nothing was wrong, like I saw him for the first time. "How you doing, Mr. Butterball? Y'all have any?" He said, "Boy, make yourself useful. Go get me some food." I said, "Yes, sir." See, many times when you want more, you've got to be willing to pay your dues. So I became their errand boy. I would get their lunch and their dinner and all kind of food for them. After a while, I would take the food to them in the control room, and I would not leave until they would ask me to, and I'd watch them working the controls, and I'd memorize their hand movements. And pretty soon, they would trust me with their cars to go pick up entertainers that came into town, entertainers like Sam Cooke, Dinah Ross and the Supremes, the Four Tops and the Temptations. I would drive them all over Miami Beach in the disc jockeys' cars. Finally, one day, I was at the radio station, and a guy by the name of Rock was drinking while he was on the air. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was the only one there. None of the other jocks were available, and I was looking at him through the control room window. Pretty soon the phone rang. It was the general manager. I said, "Hello?" He said, "Les, this is Mr. Klein." I said, "I know." He said, "Rock can't finish his program." I said, "I know." He said, "Would you call one of the other DJs to come in?" I said, "Yes, sir." I hung the phone up. I said, "Now he must think I'm crazy." I called my mom and my girlfriend, Cassandra. I said, "Y'all come out on the front porch and turn up the radio. I'm about to come on the air." I waited for about 20 minutes, and I called him back. I said, "Mr. Klein, I can't find nobody." He said, "Young boy, do you know how to segue the records?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Go in there and don't say nothing here." I said, "Yes, sir." I couldn't wait to get behind those controls. I put the headphones on. I said, "Look out, this is me, LB Triple P, Les Brown, your platter playing papa. There were none before me, and there will be none after me. Therefore, that makes me the one and only. Young and single and love to mingle, certified, bona fide, indubitably qualified to bring you satisfaction, whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. I was hungry."